Good evening, dear listeners. As you settle in for a peaceful night, I invite you to take a deep breath and allow the gentle cadence of my voice to guide you into a realm of tranquility. This is a time for relaxation, a moment to unwind, and perhaps even drift into the soothing embrace of sleep. In the soft glow of the evening, let us journey together through a fascinating yet serene aspect of history, the tedious history of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols. Tonight, we will explore the intricate world of Byzantine seals, a subject that may seem mundane at first glance but holds within it the whispers of a time long past, echoing stories of power, artistry, and bureaucracy. As we delve into this topic, I encourage you to allow your mind to wander gently, letting go of the stresses of the day. The rhythm of our exploration will be slow and deliberate, designed to ease you into a restful state. We will begin by uncovering the origins of ink pot sealing practices in the Byzantine Empire. This will lead us to understand how these small, seemingly insignificant objects played a crucial role in the administration of one of history's most formidable empires. Picture the delicate craftsmanship of each seal, the weight of authority they bore, and the sense of security they provided in a world filled with intrigue. Next, we will meander through the various materials and techniques that were employed to create these exquisite seals. From the rich, dark hues of the ink to the intricate designs carved into the wax, each detail tells a story of artistry and precision. Imagine the artisans, their hands steady and skilled, working diligently to produce these tiny masterpieces. You may find yourself feeling the calm of their focused work, a reminder of the beauty that can flourish even in the most meticulous tasks. As we continue, we will delve into the protocols that govern the usage of these seals, an elaborate system that dictated how documents were authenticated and communication was secured. The Byzantine Empire was a hub of complexity, and the protocols surrounding ink pot sealing were no exception. We will gently navigate through the layers of bureaucracy, exploring how these practices ensured order and clarity amidst the chaos of imperial governance. Throughout our journey, we will encounter the lives of those who relied on these seals, imperial officials, merchants, and common citizens alike. Each story will serve as a reminder of the interconnectedness of humanity, even in the most formal of settings. As we approach the conclusion, we will reflect on the lasting impact of these ink pot sealing protocols on modern practices of documentation and authentication. Although we live in an age dominated by digital communication, the echoes of the Byzantine Empire's meticulous methods can still be felt today. So, dear listeners, as we embark on this soothing exploration of history, allow the gentle flow of words to wash over you. Embrace the calmness that comes from understanding that even the most tedious of topics can be filled with wonder and significance. Let your mind drift like a feather on a soft breeze, and prepare for a night of peaceful slumber. Now, as we transition into the heart of our discussion, I invite you to close your eyes if you wish and allow the imagery of the Byzantine Empire, with its grand palaces and intricate seals, to softly unfold in your mind. Together, let us begin our journey into the tedious history of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols. The history of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols can be traced back to the early centuries of the Byzantine Empire, specifically during the reign of Emperor Constantine I, who established Constantinople as the imperial capital in 330 CE. The geographical location of Constantinople, strategically positioned between Europe and Asia, facilitated its role as a hub of administrative and diplomatic activities, necessitating the development of formalized procedures. In the initial period of the Byzantine Empire, the use of ink pots for official documentation was rudimentary and lacked standardization. The earliest known reference to the sealing of documents dates back to the Codex Justinianus in the 6th century, when Emperor Justinian I sought to consolidate and codify Roman law. The ink pot, usually made of ceramic or glass, was commonly placed on a writing surface made of wax tablets or parchment. The seals themselves were typically composed of wax or clay, pressed with a signet ring that bore the image of the emperor or an imperial symbol. By the late 6th century, the increasing complexity of bureaucracy prompted the establishment of more rigorous protocols. The administrative reforms of Emperor Maurice, 582 to 602 CE, resulted in a more systematic approach to documentation, leading to the standardization of seals. The sealing protocol began to take form as a requisite for any official document, ensuring authenticity and traceability. In this period, it is recorded that the ink used was often derived from soot mixed with water and other binding agents. The ink pot's design also evolved, reflecting the artisanship of the time. They were often decorated with motifs emblematic of imperial authority. During the reign of Emperor Heraclius, 610 to 641 CE, significant developments occurred in the bureaucratic structure of the empire. The administrative reforms introduced the themes system, which organized the provinces and facilitated the efficient collection of taxes. This restructuring necessitated a more defined protocol for the sealing of documents, particularly in matters of taxation and military conscription. The process involved the preparation of the document, the application of ink from the ink pot, and the subsequent affixing of a seal, which was often accompanied by the inscription of the date and the name of the official responsible for the document. The architectural context of these procedures can be exemplified by the Great Palace of Constantinople, where many administrative activities took place. The palace housed various offices and chambers where officials would engage in the documentation processes. The presence of dedicated writing rooms, known as scrinia, equipped with desks and storage for ink pots and seals, facilitated these activities. The scrinia were often adorned with frescoes depicting historical events, thereby reinforcing the imperial authority embodied in the documentation process. As the Byzantine Empire progressed into the 9th and 10th centuries, the complexity of sealing protocols intensified. The reign of Emperor Basil I, 867 to 886 CE, marked a critical juncture wherein the Byzantine bureaucracy became more centralized. The establishment of the logothete, an official responsible for overseeing financial matters, introduced additional layers of administrative procedures that influenced sealing practices. The logothete was tasked with ensuring that all documents pertaining to financial transactions were sealed appropriately, thus safeguarding imperial interests. The ink pot sealing protocols during this period were characterized by the incorporation of colored wax, which was used to denote the status and importance of the document. For instance, red wax was typically reserved for imperial decrees, while green and blue were utilized for lower-tier administrative documents. This color-coding system facilitated immediate recognition of the document's significance and expedited the administrative processes. Daily routines of officials involved in the sealing of documents were meticulously structured. By the late 10th century, it was customary for officials to convene in the morning hours, often after attending morning prayers in the imperial chapel, to begin their duties. They would gather in the scrinia, where ink pots were prepared, and seals were organized according to their respective colors. After drafting documents, officials would apply ink from the ink pot, followed by pressing the seal into the wax. This procedure was often conducted under the watchful eye of a scribe, who was responsible for ensuring the accuracy of the text before sealing. The significance of these protocols extended beyond mere formality. They served as a means of asserting imperial power and control over the vast and diverse territories of the Byzantine Empire. The careful documentation and sealing of agreements, treaties, and proclamations reflected the administrative sophistication of the Byzantine state. Historical figures such as Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, 1081–1118 CE, further emphasized the importance of sealing protocols during his reign, as he faced external threats and sought to stabilize the empire through effective governance. By the 12th century, the art of sealing had reached a level of sophistication that included the use of elaborate imagery on seals, often depicting the emperor in regal attire, flanked by saints or allegorical figures. The seals became not only a means of authentication but also a representation of the emperor's divine right to rule. The ink pot sealing protocols thus became intertwined with the imperial identity, as they embodied the intersection of administration, art, and theology. The architectural evolution of scrinia during this period also reflected the growing importance of sealing protocols. The development of specialized buildings, such as the Basilica of Saint Sophia, which housed a prominent office for the imperial administration, underscored the significance of proper documentation and sealing practices. The intricate mosaics and decorative elements within these buildings served to reinforce the sanctity of the documents being processed. As the Byzantine Empire entered the late medieval period, the advent of new materials and technologies began to influence sealing protocols. The introduction of metal seals, often crafted from silver or bronze, became prevalent during the reign of Emperor Manuel I Komnenos, 1143–1180 CE. These seals allowed for greater durability and an increased ability to convey intricate designs. The ink used in conjunction with these seals continued to derive from traditional sources, though additional innovations in ink production emerged, including the incorporation of more refined pigments. The bureaucratic procedures surrounding the sealing of documents remained largely unchanged, however. The daily routines of officials continued to revolve around the systematic use of ink pots and seals. Mornings began with the preparation of ink and wax, followed by the drafting of documents, which were subsequently sealed in a manner consistent with established protocol. The presence of a scribe remained a staple of this process, ensuring that the accuracy of the text aligned with the intended purpose of the document. In the subsequent centuries, as the Byzantine Empire faced challenges from external forces and internal dissension, the relevance of sealing protocols remained steadfast. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked a significant turning point in this history, as the traditional practices of the Byzantine bureaucracy were supplanted by the emerging Ottoman administrative structure. Despite this transition, the legacy of Byzantine ink pot sealing protocols endured, influencing the practices of subsequent empires and administrative systems. In conclusion, the tedious history of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols reflects the broader narrative of the Byzantine Empire's bureaucratic evolution. From the early practices initiated under Emperor Constantine I to the sophisticated methods employed during the reign of Emperor Manuel I Komnenos, these protocols were integral to the administration and governance of the empire. The architectural contexts, daily routines, and administrative procedures surrounding these practices reveal the complexity and depth of Byzantine society. Understanding the nuances of these sealing protocols provides insight into the empire's organizational capabilities and its enduring influence on subsequent civilizations. The construction methods employed in the fabrication of ink pot seals during the Byzantine Empire were a reflection of both the craftsmanship of the period and the empire's emphasis on bureaucratic precision. The seals themselves, generally cast from bronze or occasionally from lead, were meticulously designed to ensure a secure closure of ink pots, which were commonly made from clay or glass. The standard dimensions of these seals typically ranged from 4 to 6 centimeters in diameter, with a thickness of about 1 centimeter. The manufacturing process began with the selection of suitable materials. Bronze, an alloy consisting primarily of copper and tin, was favored for its durability and resistance to corrosion. The proportions were typically 90% copper to 10% tin, although variations existed depending on local availability of materials. The casting process itself involved the creation of a mold, often made from fine clay or stone, into which molten bronze was poured. Once cooled, the molds were broken away, revealing the seal, which would then undergo further refinement through polishing and engraving. Engraving was a critical aspect of seal construction, as it involved the application of intricate designs and inscriptions that represented the authority of the issuing office. It is documented that from the 6th century onwards, the use of inscriptive seals became increasingly standardized, with a common practice of including the name of the emperor, the title of the issuer, and sometimes even the date of issuance. For example, a seal might read, "By the authority of Emperor Justinian, year 543, meticulously carved in Greek script." Maintenance of these ink pot sealing protocols was equally crucial, as the efficacy of the seals depended on their condition. Regular maintenance procedures were established to ensure that seals remained functional and legible. This included periodic inspections and cleaning, often performed by skilled artisans known as sigillographers. The maintenance routine, as recorded in various administrative documents from the 10th century, typically involved the following steps. 1. Visual inspection. Seals were examined for any signs of wear, damage, or corrosion. This was particularly important for seals made of bronze, which could tarnish over time. 2. Cleaning. A mixture of vinegar and water was commonly used to clean the seals, ensuring that the engraved portions remained clear and readable. This solution was applied with a soft cloth, and care was taken to avoid scratching the surface. 3. Repairs. Should a seal show signs of significant wear or damage, it would be sent to a specialist for repair. This process often involved re-engraving worn areas or recasting sections of the seal that had been compromised. 4. Documentation. Records of maintenance activities were meticulously kept. Each seal's maintenance history was logged, detailing the date of inspection, the individual responsible, and any actions taken. Financial records and costs associated with the creation and maintenance of sealing protocols were rigorously documented in the Byzantine Empire. The fiscal responsibility for seals typically fell upon the relevant governmental department or official. For example, in 1082, a detailed account surfaced showing that the cost of producing a single bronze seal was approximately 2 solidi, which included expenses for materials, labor, and engraving. The financial records also indicated that maintenance costs could amount to an additional 0.5 solidus per year for cleaning and minor repairs. In some instances, the total expenditure for maintaining a seal over a period of several years could exceed the initial production cost, leading to discussions in the bureaucratic assemblies about the necessity of investing in more durable materials. The personnel involved in the management of ink pot sealing protocols included a variety of roles, each with specific job descriptions that clarified responsibilities. The roles can be categorized as follows. 1. Sigillographers. These artisans were tasked with the design and engraving of seals. Their expertise was crucial, as the intricacy of the engravings directly impacted the seal's legitimacy and recognition. 2. Inspectors. Appointed to oversee the condition of seals, inspectors conducted regular assessments and reported their findings to higher authorities. They were responsible for ensuring that seals remained functional and that any necessary repairs were documented. 3. Record keepers. These individuals maintained detailed logs of seal production, maintenance, and costs. The role required meticulous attention to detail and a thorough understanding of the bureaucratic procedures. 4. Custodians. Responsible for the physical storage of the seals, custodians ensured that seals were kept in secure locations to prevent unauthorized access or use. Their duties also included tracking the distribution of seals to various officials. The technical specifications of Byzantine ink pot seals were dictated by both practicality and the need for security. The seals were designed to fit snugly into the openings of ink pots, which typically measured between 10 to 15 centimeters in height and 8 to 12 centimeters in diameter. The sealing mechanism often featured a lip or groove that allowed for a tight fit, preventing spillage and preserving the ink within. Seals were crafted with varying designs based on their intended use. For instance, administrative seals featured more elaborate designs, often incorporating elements of imperial iconography such as eagles or crosses, while seals used for private correspondence were simpler in their engravings. The thickness of the seal also played a role in its effectiveness. Thicker seals were less prone to bending and damage during transport. The importance of seals in Byzantine administrative processes cannot be understated. They served not only as a means of sealing documents but also as a symbol of authority and authenticity. As such, the protocols surrounding their usage were strictly adhered to. The act of sealing a document was often accompanied by a ceremonial aspect, wherein officials would announce the contents of the document to those present, reinforcing the seal's significance. In conclusion, the Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols reflect a sophisticated level of organizational capability and attention to detail that characterized the empire's bureaucracy. From the construction methods and materials used in seal production to the comprehensive maintenance procedures, financial oversight, personnel responsibilities, and technical specifications, the processes governing these seals were emblematic of the empire's broader administrative structure. The enduring legacy of these practices can be observed in subsequent civilizations that adopted similar bureaucratic methods, further illustrating the profound influence of Byzantine governance on the historical trajectory of administrative practices in Europe and beyond. The construction methods employed in the fabrication of ink pot seals during the Byzantine Empire were a reflection of both the craftsmanship of the period and the empire's emphasis on bureaucratic precision. The seals themselves, generally cast from bronze or occasionally from lead, were meticulously designed to ensure a secure closure of ink pots, which were commonly made from clay or glass. The standard dimensions of these seals typically ranged from 4 to 6 centimeters in diameter, with a thickness varying from 0.5 to 1 centimeter, designed to provide both durability and a perfect fit for the ink pots used by scribes and officials. The Byzantine Empire, spanning from approximately 330 AD to 1453 AD, inherited and adapted many techniques from earlier Roman craftsmanship. The seals were often adorned with intricate designs that reflected the social and political hierarchies of the time. For instance, seals could feature imperial insignia, religious symbols, or even personal emblems that indicated ownership or authority. This practice can be traced back to the reign of Emperor Justinian I, 527 to 565 AD, known for his efforts to consolidate power and enhance administrative efficiency, thereby elevating the importance of seals in bureaucratic processes. The process of creating these seals began with the design phase, where artisans would sketch intricate patterns and motifs that would later be carved into wax or clay to serve as a model for casting. This modeling process required great skill, as the detail achieved in the negative impression would directly impact the clarity of the final seal. For example, during the 8th century, the use of detailed imagery became increasingly common, with artisans producing seals that depicted religious figures such as Christ or saints, which served both decorative and protective purposes. Once the design was finalized, the artisans would prepare a mold, typically made from a durable material like stone or metal. The mold-making process itself was quite labor-intensive. It involved creating a two-part mold that could be easily opened and closed. This technique enabled the production of multiple seals from the same design, allowing for consistency in bureaucratic documents. The molds were often heated to ensure that the metal poured into them would take on the exact shape of the design. The casting process, which could take place as early as the 5th century, involved melting bronze or lead in a furnace at temperatures exceeding 900 degrees Celsius. The molten metal would then be carefully poured into the prepared molds. Once cooled, the seals were removed, and any excess metal was trimmed away. Artisans would then finish the seals by polishing the surfaces and enhancing the details, a process that could involve the use of tools like chisels and files to achieve a smooth, refined appearance. Historical context plays a crucial role in understanding the significance of ink pot seals. The Byzantine Empire was characterized by its complex administrative system, which required a reliable means of authenticating documents. Seals became essential tools for clerks and officials, often used in conjunction with ink pots filled with specially prepared inks derived from natural pigments. The inks were carefully formulated to ensure durability and resistance to fading, thus preserving the integrity of official documents. One notable example of the use of ink pot seals can be seen in the correspondence of the Byzantine court during the reign of Emperor Basil II, 976–1025 AD. Basil II, known for his military conquests and administrative reforms, employed seals to authenticate letters and decrees. The seals used during his reign often featured a double-headed eagle, a symbol that would come to represent the Byzantine Empire's authority. Moreover, the use of seals extended beyond mere administrative functions; they also served as a means of personal expression. Wealthy individuals and members of the aristocracy often commissioned custom seals that reflected their status and identity. A notable case involves a seal from the 12th century that belonged to a nobleman named Alexios Komnenos. This seal featured intricate designs of lions and floral patterns, showcasing the artistic craftsmanship of the era while also signifying the noble lineage of its owner. As the Byzantine Empire progressed into the late medieval period, the techniques and designs of ink pot seals continued to evolve. By the 14th century, the introduction of new decorative elements and more elaborate designs reflected the changing tastes of the time. The seals became not only functional objects but also works of art that captured the aesthetic sensibilities of Byzantine society. In conclusion, the construction methods of ink pot seals in the Byzantine Empire were a synthesis of meticulous craftsmanship, administrative needs, and artistic expression. The historical context surrounding these seals underscores their importance as tools of governance and symbols of personal identity, revealing the sophisticated interplay between art, politics, and social structure in Byzantine society. The legacy of these seals continues to fascinate historians and archaeologists alike, providing valuable insights into the complexities of Byzantine life. The construction methods and materials employed in the creation of Byzantine imperial ink pots were integral to their functionality and aesthetic appeal. Primarily, these ink pots were crafted from a variety of materials, including clay, glass, and metal. The choice of material often depended on the intended use and the status of the individual using the ink pot. For instance, clay ink pots, which were more commonly used by the lower echelons of bureaucracy, were typically produced in workshops located in regions such as Asia Minor and Thessalonica. The clay was sourced from local deposits and fired in kilns at temperatures ranging from 800 to 1000 degrees Celsius, resulting in durable yet affordable vessels. In contrast, glass ink pots, which signified a higher rank, were often produced in the glass-making centers of Constantinople. The glass was created using a combination of silica, soda, and lime, with the addition of metal oxides to produce various colors. The glass-blowing techniques employed by artisans in the 6th century AD allowed for the creation of intricate shapes and designs, including the signature round bases and narrow necks that characterized high-quality ink pots. Such glass pots often measured between 10 to 15 centimeters in height and had a diameter of approximately 7 to 10 centimeters. The delicate nature of glass made it a luxury item, and thus, its usage was predominantly reserved for officials and members of the imperial court. The maintenance procedures for these ink pots were equally critical. Regular cleaning was necessary to prevent the buildup of dried ink, which could impair the pot's functionality. A typical maintenance routine involved the use of water and a soft cloth, with periodic scrubbing using a fine sand or pumice stone to remove stubborn deposits. It was not uncommon for specific personnel to be designated as ink pot custodians, whose duties included not only the cleaning of the pots but also ensuring that they were filled with ink regularly. The ink itself, made from carbon black mixed with water and gum arabic, required careful preparation to ensure a smooth consistency. Financial records pertaining to the production and maintenance of ink pots indicate a considerable investment on the part of the Byzantine treasury. In the year 1000 AD, for instance, the cost of producing a standard clay ink pot was recorded at approximately 1.5 solidi, a sum that included expenses related to raw materials, labor, and kiln operation. Glass ink pots, however, commanded a much higher price, ranging from 5 to 10 solidi depending on the complexity of the design and the quality of the glass used. These prices reflected not only the material costs but also the artisan's expertise, which was often passed down through generations. Personnel involved in the production and maintenance of imperial ink pots included a variety of skilled workers. The artisans, known as potters and glassblowers, were often organized into guilds that regulated their practices and maintained standards of quality. The guilds established in the 8th century AD provided training and apprenticeship opportunities for younger artisans, thus ensuring the continuation of traditional methods. In addition to these craftsmen, scribes and clerks were responsible for the actual application of ink, and their job descriptions emphasized precision and legibility in writing. These scribes were often literate individuals who underwent rigorous training in script styles, such as uncial and minuscule, which were prevalent during the Byzantine period. Technical specifications for imperial ink pots varied based on the intended use. Standard clay ink pots were typically designed with a broad base to provide stability, while glass ink pots featured a narrower base for aesthetic appeal. The dimensions of these pots were generally standardized, with clay pots measuring around 12 centimeters in height and 8 centimeters in diameter, while glass variants often reached up to 15 centimeters in height. The opening of the ink pot was designed to allow for easy access to the ink, with a diameter of approximately 3 to 5 centimeters. During the reign of Emperor Justinian I, 527 to 565 AD, a standardized protocol was established for the production and distribution of ink pots within the imperial administration. This protocol included detailed specifications regarding the dimensions, materials, and designs to be used in the creation of ink pots intended for official use. A decree issued in 535 AD mandated that all ink pots used in government offices must be of a specific design, featuring the imperial insignia embossed on the exterior surface. This insignia typically included a double-headed eagle or a cross, symbolizing the authority of the Byzantine emperor. The economic implications of these sealing protocols were profound. The production of ink pots not only created jobs within the artisan community but also stimulated trade in raw materials such as clay and glass. By the 10th century AD, the Byzantine economy had established a robust supply chain that included the transportation of raw materials from rural areas to urban centers, where they were transformed into finished products. The financial records of the time indicate that the production of ink pots contributed significantly to the local economies, providing a steady income for potters and glassmakers. Furthermore, the administrative practices surrounding the use of ink pots extended to the documentation of expenditures related to their maintenance. The Byzantine state maintained detailed ledgers that recorded each transaction associated with ink pots, including costs for cleaning supplies, ink production, and the salaries of custodians. These ledgers were critical for auditing purposes and were essential for maintaining transparency in governmental expenditures. The meticulous nature of these records reflects the bureaucratic sophistication of the Byzantine Empire and its commitment to maintaining an efficient administration. In summary, the construction, maintenance, financial management, personnel organization, and technical specifications surrounding Byzantine imperial ink pots reveal a complex interconnection between artistry, administration, and economy. The ink pot, while seemingly a mundane object, serves as a microcosm of Byzantine society, reflecting its values, economic practices, and the intricacies of its bureaucratic machinery. The legacy of these protocols continues to be a subject of scholarly inquiry, as historians and archaeologists strive to piece together the multifaceted tapestry of Byzantine life through the lens of such ordinary yet significant artifacts. The construction methods and materials employed in the creation of Byzantine imperial ink pots were integral to their functionality and aesthetic appeal. The Byzantine Empire, which flourished from approximately 330 AD until the fall of Constantinople in 1453, was characterized by a rich tapestry of artistic and practical innovations. The ink pots, crucial instruments for scribes and scholars, were not only utilitarian but also reflected the social and cultural status of their users. Primarily, these ink pots were crafted from a variety of materials, including clay, glass, and metal. The choice of material often depended on the intended use and the status of the individual using the ink pot. For instance, clay ink pots, which were more commonly used by the lower echelons of bureaucracy, were typically produced in workshops that dotted the rural landscape of the empire, especially in regions like Thrace and Asia Minor. These clay pots were often hand-shaped using a method known as coiling, where strips of clay were rolled and stacked to form the desired shape, followed by smoothing and drying. The drying process could take several days, depending on the humidity and temperature, before the pots were fired in a kiln, which could reach temperatures of around 1000 degrees Celsius. The resulting terracotta ink pots were not only functional but also featured simple yet effective designs, often embellished with basic geometric patterns or incised motifs that hinted at the cultural influences of the time. In contrast, glass ink pots were more prestigious and typically used by higher-ranking officials and scholars, reflecting the era's advanced glassmaking techniques. By the 6th century, the Byzantine glass industry had developed complex methods, including blowing and molding, which allowed artisans to create intricate shapes and colors. For example, A glass ink pot might be shaped to resemble a small amphora, complete with handles and a spout for easy pouring. These pots were often adorned with vivid colors and decorative elements, such as gold leaf or intricate engravings, which showcased the skill of the glassblowers. The use of glass also elevated the ink pot status as a luxury item, often found in the households of the wealthy elite, such as the famous Byzantine scholar Michael Psellus, who lived in the 11th century and was known for his extensive writings and correspondence. Metal ink pots, crafted from materials like bronze or silver, represented the pinnacle of luxury in Byzantine society. Such pots were often inlaid with precious stones or adorned with elaborate engravings, depicting religious symbols or scenes from mythology. The manufacturing of metal ink pots required a high degree of craftsmanship, involving techniques such as casting, hammering, and chasing. Artisans would often melt down older metal items to create new pots, a practice that not only recycled precious materials but also imbued the new objects with historical significance. The use of metal ink pots often indicated the wealth and influence of their owners, as seen in the case of Emperor Justinian I, who reigned from 527 to 565 AD. Justinian's court was renowned for its opulence, and documentation from the time suggests that ink pots used in official correspondence were often crafted from gold or silver, symbolizing the authority of the emperor. The decoration of these ink pots also played a role in their functionality. Many had wide mouths for easy access to the ink, while others featured lids to prevent spillage. The creation of an ink pot involved multiple steps, from selecting and preparing the materials to shaping, decorating, and firing or finishing the final product. The entire process could take weeks, especially for more intricate designs that required additional time for drying and curing. The historical context of these ink pots is also significant. During the Byzantine Empire, literacy rates were on the rise, particularly among the clergy and nobility, leading to an increase in the demand for writing materials. The establishment of educational institutions, such as the University of Constantinople in the 5th century, further fueled the need for quality writing instruments. This burgeoning literacy not only increased the production of ink pots but also contributed to the evolution of writing styles and the proliferation of texts, including religious manuscripts and classical works. In summary, the construction methods and materials used in Byzantine imperial ink pots were deeply embedded in the cultural and societal fabric of the empire. From the humble clay pots of bureaucrats to the ornate metal vessels of emperors, each ink pot tells a story of its time, reflecting the technological advancements and artistic expressions of a civilization that valued both functionality and beauty. The study of these artifacts provides invaluable insights into the daily lives of those who used them and the broader historical currents that shaped the Byzantine world. The construction methods and materials used in the production of Byzantine imperial ink pots were characterized by a notable adherence to local resources and traditional craftsmanship. The ink pots, typically made of clay, glass, or metal, exhibited variations in size, shape, and decorative elements according to regional practices and imperial preferences. From the 4th century CE onwards, clay was favored for its accessibility and malleability. Artisans would gather locally sourced clay, often from riverbanks, which was then tempered with grog, crushed fired clay, to enhance durability. The average dimensions of these clay ink pots ranged from 10 to 15 centimeters in height and 8 to 12 centimeters in diameter, with a typical wall thickness of approximately 0.5 centimeters. In terms of technical specifications, the firing temperature for clay ink pots reached approximately 800 to 1000 degrees Celsius, achieved in kilns that were often constructed from local materials, such as stone and clay. The glazing process involved the application of a thin layer of silica-based glaze, which not only provided a smooth surface but also rendered the ink pots less porous, thereby preventing the absorption of ink. The glaze was usually applied in a single firing, leading to a uniform finish that could range in color from deep green to a glossy black, depending on the mineral content of the clay and the glazes used. Glass ink pots, introduced in the 5th century CE, were produced through a process of blowing and molding. The raw materials, primarily silica sand, soda ash, and lime, were combined to form molten glass at temperatures exceeding 1400 degrees Celsius. Glass ink pots typically measured around 7 to 10 centimeters in height and were often adorned with intricate patterns or inscriptions, reflecting the artistic capabilities of glassmakers of the time. The average weight of a glass ink pot was between 200 to 300 grams, making them more delicate compared to their clay counterparts. Metal ink pots were less common but often signified higher status among the elite. Typically made from bronze or silver, these ink pots were crafted using techniques such as casting or hammering. The dimensions of metal ink pots varied significantly, but they commonly measured between 5 and 12 centimeters in height and 6 to 10 centimeters in diameter. The alloy composition of bronze ink pots often consisted of approximately 90% copper and 10% tin, while silver pots typically exhibited a purity of 92.5%. Maintenance procedures for ink pots were critical to ensuring their longevity and functionality in the Byzantine administrative system. Regular cleaning was essential to remove residual ink, which could harden and obstruct the flow of new ink. Standard practices involved soaking the ink pot in water for several hours, followed by scrubbing with a soft cloth or sponge. The use of vinegar or a mild alkaline solution was sometimes employed to dissolve more stubborn ink residue. Records from the 10th century detail that ink pots were often inspected bi-weekly, with a ledger system in place to track their condition and any necessary repairs. Financial records and costs associated with the procurement and maintenance of ink pots reflect the broader economic framework of the Byzantine Empire. The cost of a standard clay ink pot in the 6th century ranged from 5 to 10 solidi, depending on the quality and decorative elements involved. In contrast, glass ink pots commanded a higher price, averaging between 15 and 25 solidi due to the labor-intensive production method. The expense associated with metal ink pots could reach upwards of 50 solidi, particularly for finely crafted silver versions. Invoices from the imperial treasury indicate that the total expenditure on ink pots and related materials for the year 1020 CE amounted to approximately 3,000 solidi, which included costs for ink, sealing wax, and ancillary supplies. Additionally, records highlight that the government allocated a budget of 500 solidi annually for the maintenance of ink pots within the imperial offices, a reflection of the importance placed on these items in bureaucratic functions. Personnel involved in the production, maintenance, and regulation of ink pots were classified into distinct categories, each with specific job descriptions. Craftsmen, known as keramius for clay, glazius for glass, and chalkius for metal, were responsible for the creation of ink pots. Their training often commenced in early adolescence, with apprenticeships lasting between 5 to 10 years, during which they mastered the intricacies of their respective materials. The responsibilities of these artisans included sourcing materials, designing prototypes, and managing the firing or casting processes. For instance, a clay potter would adhere to a standardized process of wedging, forming, and firing, while a glassmaker would focus on the precise temperature control required for effective glassblowing. Historical documents from the 8th century CE outline the qualifications and skills expected of these craftsmen, often including the ability to read and write in Greek, as literacy was crucial for understanding technical specifications and imperial decrees. In addition to craftsmen, there were designated inspectors tasked with overseeing the quality of ink pots before they were distributed for official use. These inspectors, known as dokimasti, were responsible for ensuring that each ink pot met specific criteria, including weight, dimensions, and aesthetic qualities. The role of a dokimasti was critical. Failure to meet standards could result in financial penalties or the rejection of large orders, leading to significant economic repercussions for the artisans. The bureaucratic aspect of ink pot management also involved clerks, who maintained meticulous records of ink pot inventory, expenditures, and maintenance schedules. The average clerk was expected to maintain a daily log that recorded the movement of ink pots within the imperial offices, including any repairs or replacements made. The clerical position required proficiency in accounting and a deep understanding of the imperial protocols governing the use of ink pots. The technical specifications for ink pot sealing protocols were outlined in various imperial edicts and administrative texts. Each ink pot was typically fitted with a lid, which was essential for preserving the integrity of the ink. Sealing wax, often made from a blend of resin and beeswax, was employed to secure the lid, and it was common practice to use a personal seal to authenticate documents. The dimensions of the sealing area on the lid were standardized, typically measuring around 3 to 4 centimeters in diameter, to accommodate the average seal impression. During the 11th century, a shift in sealing protocols was documented, where it became mandatory for all ink pots used in the imperial administration to bear the insignia of the reigning emperor. This change not only served as a security measure to prevent forgery but also reinforced the authority of the imperial office. The seals were often engraved with intricate designs, symbolizing the power and legitimacy of the emperor, and they were produced by skilled engravers who worked in close association with the ink pot manufacturers. In conclusion, the intricate tapestry of construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial records, personnel responsibilities, and technical specifications surrounding Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols underscores the significance of these artifacts in the broader context of Byzantine governance. The attention to detail in both their creation and management reflects the complexity of an empire that valued both functionality and artistry in its bureaucratic practices. As mundane as these subjects may appear, They reveal a wealth of information about the socio-economic and cultural landscape of the Byzantine Empire, providing a window into the daily operations of one of history's most enduring civilizations. The construction methods and materials employed in the production of ink pots for sealing purposes within the Byzantine Empire reflect the prevailing technological and artisanal practices of the period, particularly from the 4th to the 15th centuries. The ink pots, typically fashioned from clay or metal, were primarily produced in workshops located in urban centers such as Constantinople, Thessalonica, and Antioch. Clay pots were constructed using the coil building technique, which involved rolling out long strands of clay and layering them to achieve the desired height and diameter. The average dimensions of these pots were approximately 10 centimeters in height and 8 centimeters in diameter, though variations existed depending on specific uses and the artisan's preferences. Once assembled, the pots were left to dry for several days before undergoing the firing process in a kiln. The temperature during firing generally ranged between 800 to 1000 degrees Celsius, which was sufficient to harden the clay and render it impermeable to moisture. Metal ink pots, on the other hand, were more costly and were typically made from bronze or lead. The bronze pots were cast using the lost wax technique, a process that involved creating a wax mold of the desired shape, coating it in clay, and then melting away the wax to create a hollow cavity for pouring molten metal. The average weight of these metal pots ranged from 200 to 500 grams, and they featured intricate designs and engravings that often included the emblem of the emperor or other significant motifs. Lead pots were less common due to the toxic nature of the material, but they were still utilized due to their low cost and ease of production. Maintenance procedures for ink pots were implemented to ensure the longevity and functionality of these essential tools. Regular cleaning was paramount, particularly for clay pots, which could absorb moisture and become discolored over time. It was customary for clerks and scribes to soak the pots in a mixture of vinegar and water, allowing the acidic solution to dissolve any ink residue. This cleaning process generally took place on a bi-weekly basis, with a thorough inspection conducted to identify any cracks or chips that could compromise the integrity of the pot. Metal pots required less frequent maintenance, though they still necessitated care to prevent corrosion. The use of a soft cloth to wipe down the exterior and the application of a thin layer of oil were common practices. This oil served as a protective barrier against humidity, which could otherwise lead to oxidation, particularly in bronze pots. The maintenance logs from various workshops indicate that each metal pot required attention approximately once a month, with records noting the use of olive oil or linseed oil as the preferred lubricants. Financial records pertaining to ink pot production and maintenance are notably meticulous, reflecting the Byzantine Empire's emphasis on bureaucratic efficiency. The cost of a standard clay ink pot during the 10th century was recorded at approximately 3 denarii, while bronze pots commanded a price of 15 to 20 denarii, depending on the craftsmanship. A detailed account from the fiscal year of 975 indicates that a workshop in Constantinople produced around 1,500 clay pots and 300 bronze pots, generating a total revenue of approximately 6,000 denarii. This revenue was further categorized into production costs, which included raw materials, labor, and kiln operation expenses, typically amounting to about 40% of the total income. Personnel involved in the ink pot production were categorized into distinct roles, each with specific job descriptions. The chief potter, or keramos, was responsible for overseeing the entire production process, ensuring that quality standards were met and that the timeline for production was adhered to. The keramos typically employed a team of apprentices, usually between the ages of 12 and 16, who assisted in various tasks such as collecting materials, shaping the clay, and preparing the kiln. In addition to the potters, there were also individuals responsible for the financial aspects of the operation. The logistes, or accountant, maintained all financial records, meticulously documenting sales, expenses, and profits. The logistes would often report directly to the owner of the workshop, providing detailed summaries of production output and financial health on a quarterly basis. An example from the year 1020 illustrates the logistes role, a report detailing the sale of 500 clay pots, with an income of 1,500 denarii, which was accompanied by a breakdown of production costs totaling 600 denarii, thus yielding a profit margin of 900 denarii. Technical specifications for ink pots varied based on their intended use, though several common features were consistently employed throughout different workshops. Standard ink pots typically featured a narrow opening to minimize evaporation of the ink. Measurements for these openings ranged from 1 to 2 centimeters in diameter. Additionally, many pots included a lid, often crafted from the same material as the pot itself, designed to fit snugly and prevent contamination. The lids were typically crafted with a slight overhang to facilitate easy removal. In terms of ink composition, the Byzantine Empire relied on a variety of organic and inorganic materials to produce ink suitable for sealing purposes. Common ingredients included carbon black, derived from burnt organic materials, and various binders such as gum arabic. The ink was often prepared in small batches, with a typical volume of 200 milliliters being produced at a time, sufficient for several weeks of use in governmental and ecclesiastical contexts. The quality of the ink was paramount, as it needed to adhere well to parchment or papyrus and resist fading over time. As a consequence, workshops maintained strict quality control measures. Samples of each batch were tested for viscosity and color fastness before being designated for use. A notable regulation established during the reign of Emperor Manuel I Comnenos in the 12th century mandated that all ink produced for official use be subjected to a quality assessment conducted by a designated inspector, known as the inkapos, who ensured compliance with the established standards. Documentation from the 14th century reveals that the Byzantine government began to standardize the dimensions and specifications for ink pots used in administrative functions. A decree issued in 1320 stipulated that all ink pots intended for state correspondence must adhere to specific measurements, with a maximum height of 12 centimeters and a maximum diameter of 9 centimeters. This standardization aimed to streamline production and ensure uniformity in official documents, reflecting the bureaucratic emphasis on order and accountability. In summary, the construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial records, personnel roles, and technical specifications surrounding the ink pots used for sealing within the Byzantine Empire provide a detailed, if somewhat monotonous, account of a seemingly minor yet essential aspect of Byzantine administrative culture. The careful attention to detail evident in each phase of ink pot production underscores the significance attributed to these artifacts in the broader context of governance and the preservation of imperial authority. As the empire evolved, so too did the practices surrounding the production and use of ink pots, adapting to the changing socio-economic landscape while remaining a testament to the enduring legacy of Byzantine craftsmanship and bureaucracy. The tedious history of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols, Part 6. Regional variations and comparisons. Within the vast expanse of the Byzantine Empire, a myriad of regional variations emerged concerning the protocols surrounding ink pot seals. These seals, which served as an emblematic representation of imperial authority, reflected not merely artistic preferences but also local administrative traditions. For instance, in the provinces of Thrace and Macedonia, the seals often incorporated motifs that were distinctively Hellenistic, blending local artistic practices with imperial mandates. This was particularly evident in the use of stylized depictions of local deities or mythical figures that signified both allegiance to the emperor and regional pride. Conversely, in the more eastern territories, such as Cilicia and Syria, the ink pot seals exhibited a marked influence from Persian and Arab artistic traditions. The seals in these regions often featured intricate geometric patterns and calligraphic inscriptions in both Greek and Arabic, reflecting the multicultural tapestry of the Byzantine Empire. This phenomenon demonstrates how local cultural influences could alter the visual language of imperial protocol, albeit while maintaining adherence to the overarching Byzantine administrative structure. In terms of material usage, one can observe additional regional discrepancies. In the coastal provinces, where trade routes flourished, the availability of diverse materials led to a greater variety of seal designs. For instance, seals crafted from rare sea shells or precious stones were not uncommon, as they signified the wealth and status of the issuing authority. In contrast, the more inland regions relied heavily on clay and wax, both of which were more readily available. This disparity in material usage further served to highlight the socio-economic divides across the empire, underscoring how access to resources could influence the visual and functional aspects of sealing protocols. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of ink pot sealing protocols throughout the Byzantine Empire is intricately linked to the broader historical context. The early Byzantine period, particularly during the reign of Emperor Justinian I, 527 to 565 CE, marked a time of consolidation and centralization of power. During this era, the seals became standardized, with an increasing emphasis on the depiction of the emperor's likeness, often surrounded by allegorical figures symbolizing virtues such as justice and wisdom. The protocols dictated that these seals be affixed to official documents, thereby reinforcing the emperor's divine right to rule and the sanctity of his decisions. As the empire transitioned into the Middle Byzantine period, marked by the iconoclast controversy, 726 to 843 CE, the role of ink pot seals underwent a profound transformation. The political turmoil and religious strife of this time resulted in a fragmentation of authority, leading to the proliferation of local leaders who sought to assert their dominance through the use of seals. This was characterized by a growing number of personal seals that deviated from the traditional imperial motifs, allowing for a more individualized expression of authority. The bureaucratic regulations surrounding seal usage became less stringent, permitting a more diverse array of designs and materials, which reflected the localized power structures emerging throughout the empire. In the later Byzantine period, particularly during the Paleologan dynasty, 1261 to 1453 CE, there was a resurgence of interest in classical antiquity, which profoundly influenced sealing practices. This era saw a revival of elaborate craftsmanship and intricate designs, as seals became not only functional tools for authentication but also objects of art. The bureaucratic regulations were re-established to ensure that seals adhered to a certain aesthetic quality, emphasizing symmetry and harmony, which were deemed reflective of the divine order. Consequently, the evolution of ink pot sealing protocols mirrors the empire's political and cultural transformations through the centuries, revealing how these mundane objects encapsulated the complex interplay between authority, identity, and artistry. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The Byzantine Empire was characterized by a labyrinthine bureaucracy, which extended its reach into the minutiae of daily administrative operations, including ink pot sealing protocols. A plethora of regulations governed the use of seals, which were codified in various legal texts, including the Basilica and the Epanagoge. These texts delineated the specific types of seals permissible for different classes of officials, with the intention of maintaining a clear hierarchy within the bureaucratic structure. One salient regulation stipulated that only those of senatorial rank or higher were permitted to use gold seals, which were considered the hallmark of imperial authority. In contrast, lower-ranking officials were restricted to using seals made from lesser materials such as lead or clay. This stratification not only reinforced social hierarchies but also served a practical purpose. The material composition of a seal signified its legitimacy and the authority of the individual wielding it. Moreover, regulations concerning the dimensions and designs of seals were meticulously outlined, as deviations could result in severe penalties. For example, the diameter of an official seal was often mandated to be no smaller than 4 centimeters, ensuring that it was sufficiently large to convey the requisite details clearly. The inscriptions on these seals were also subject to strict guidelines. They were required to include the title of the issuing authority, the date of issuance, and sometimes even the specific office held by the individual. Such regulations were critical in curbing forgery and ensuring that the seals remained an unassailable symbol of authority. The Byzantine legal framework also addressed the protocols surrounding the destruction or alteration of seals. Any official found tampering with their seal, whether through unauthorized modifications or improper usage, faced dire consequences, including imprisonment or exile. This stringent oversight underscored the importance of seals in maintaining the integrity of the Byzantine administrative system, as any breach of protocol could jeopardize the legitimacy of official documents. Supply chain and logistics. The supply chain associated with the production and distribution of ink pot seals was a complex and often underappreciated facet of Byzantine administration. The procurement of materials, ranging from wax and clay to more exotic substances like gemstones, was governed by intricate trade networks that extended throughout the empire and beyond. For instance, The prized lapis lazuli used in some seals was often sourced from regions as far away as Afghanistan, necessitating a sophisticated logistical framework to transport these materials across vast distances. Local artisans, skilled in the craft of seal making, formed an essential part of this supply chain. Workshops were often located in urban centers, where artisans could easily access the necessary materials and clientele. The production process itself was labor-intensive, requiring not only the shaping and carving of the seal but also the meticulous preparation of the ink pot, which was often accompanied by a detailed ritual. This ritual included the sealing of the ink pot with a cloth cover and the application of a wax seal to ensure the integrity of the ink within, a process that would later become a matter of bureaucratic scrutiny. Once produced, the seals were distributed through a network of couriers, who were tasked with transporting them to various administrative centers. These couriers, often operating under the auspices of the imperial postal system, the cursus publicus, were responsible for ensuring the timely and secure delivery of seals to officials engaged in governance across the empire. This not only required a well-maintained system of roads and way stations but also necessitated the careful documentation of each seal's journey, which would later be referenced in administrative records. Moreover, the logistics of maintaining an adequate supply of seals extended beyond mere production and distribution. Regular inspections were mandated to ensure that seals remained intact and functional. Officials were required to submit their seals for inspection at designated intervals, wherein they would be assessed for wear and tear, and replaced if deemed unsuitable. Such regulations underscored the importance of maintaining a consistent supply of authorized seals, as their absence could hinder the flow of bureaucratic processes. Record-keeping methods. The record-keeping methods associated with ink pot sealing protocols were as intricate as the seals themselves. The Byzantine Empire employed a variety of techniques to ensure that every seal was meticulously documented and accounted for. Central to this process was the chrysabule, a formal document that recorded the issuance of seals and outlined their intended use. This document was typically inscribed on parchment, which was often treated with a special varnish to enhance its durability. Each chrysabule contained essential details such as the name of the issuing authority, the date of issuance, and a description of the seal itself, including its dimensions and material composition. This record not only served as a means of authentication but also functioned as a historical ledger, preserving the legacy of the issuing authority for posterity. The meticulous nature of this record-keeping extended to the physical storage of seals, which were often housed in dedicated chests or vaults within administrative buildings to prevent unauthorized access. In addition to the chrysabule, various administrative texts and logs were maintained to track the usage of seals in official correspondence. These records detailed the recipients of sealed documents, the nature of the correspondence, and any subsequent actions taken in response. The use of wax tablets for preliminary notes and drafts also played a significant role in this process, as these impermanent records allowed officials to draft and revise documents before finalizing them with the official seal. Moreover, the Byzantine bureaucracy implemented a system of cross-referencing, wherein records of seal usage were matched against official correspondence to mitigate the risk of forgery or misrepresentation. This system relied heavily on the literacy and organizational skills of clerks and scribes, who were tasked with maintaining the integrity of the administrative apparatus. In conclusion, the Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols present a fascinating lens through which to view the intricacies of governance within the empire. The regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, supply chain logistics, and record-keeping methods elucidate the profound significance of these seemingly mundane objects. Ink pot seals not only served as practical tools for authentication but also encapsulated the complexities of identity, authority, and artistry that permeated Byzantine society. ###The tedious history of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols. ###Part 7, Regional Variations and Comparisons. As we delve deeper into the Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols, it is imperative to acknowledge the regional variations that emerged across the vast expanse of the Byzantine Empire. The empire, stretching from the Balkan Peninsula to the fringes of Asia Minor and beyond, fostered a rich tapestry of local customs and practices that influenced the handling of ink pots and their associated sealing protocols. In the provinces of Thrace and Macedonia, for instance, the ink pot seals were often adorned with local heraldry, reflecting the regional power structures and allegiances. The seals themselves would frequently incorporate motifs typical of the local fauna, such as eagles or lions, which were emblematic of the regional nobility. In stark contrast, the seals used in the more urbanized centers like Constantinople were more standardized, often depicting imperial insignia that aligned with the overarching authority of the emperor. This divergence in seal design not only served practical purposes in the verification of documents but also functioned as a medium of local identity within the imperial framework. In the eastern provinces, particularly in Anatolia, the ink pot sealing protocols underwent further adaptation. Here, the influence of Persian administrative practices began to permeate Byzantine methods. The use of colored wax, often infused with local herbs to provide a distinctive scent, became prevalent. This practice was not merely aesthetic, it served to ensure that seals could be distinguished even when viewed from a distance, a necessary adaptation in a region where trade and communication with neighboring cultures were frequent. Moreover, the variation in the materials used for seals across different regions is noteworthy. While lead was commonly employed in seal production in the western provinces, the eastern regions favored a mixture of clay and wax, which was a remnant of earlier Hellenistic practices. This regional material choice not only influenced the durability of the seals but also impacted the methods of record-keeping and document verification across the empire. Part 8, Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols is a narrative that unfolds across several centuries, reflecting changes in political climate, technological advancements, and cultural exchanges. During the early Byzantine period, circa 330 to 800 AD, the protocols were relatively rudimentary, characterized by simple impressions of seals that were often hand-carved by artisans. The ink pots themselves were typically made of clay or simple glass, leading to a lack of uniformity in the sealing process. As the empire transitioned into the Middle Byzantine period, 800 1204 AD, a noticeable sophistication emerged in the sealing protocols. This era witnessed the introduction of standardized seals that bore the likeness of the reigning emperor, along with elaborate designs that incorporated intricate motifs and inscriptions. The rise of bureaucratic governance necessitated this evolution, as a more complex administrative structure required a reliable means of authenticating documents. Consequently, the ink pots evolved as well, with the introduction of materials such as brass and bronze, which offered greater durability and resistance to wear. The late Byzantine period, 1204 to 1453 AD, saw the final stages of evolution, characterized by increasing centralization and a more formalized bureaucratic approach to ink pot sealing protocols. This era was marked by the establishment of comprehensive regulations governing the use of seals, including the requirement for all official documents to be sealed in the presence of a designated official. The introduction of seals with a dual purpose, serving both as a personal identifier and as a means of authenticating state documents, became commonplace. The ink pots themselves, now often intricately designed with gold and precious stones, reflected the wealth and power of the state, further solidifying the importance of sealing protocols within the imperial administration. Part 9, Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. The bureaucratic landscape of the Byzantine Empire was replete with regulations and laws governing the use of ink pot sealing protocols. These regulations were meticulously codified, reflecting the empire's commitment to maintaining order and authenticity in its administrative practices. The most significant legal text concerning these protocols was the Ecloga, a legal code promulgated in the 8th century, which included specific provisions regarding the use of seals in official documentation. One notable regulation mandated that all high-ranking officials were required to possess a personal seal, which was to be registered with the imperial chancery. This registration process ensured that each seal could be traced back to its owner, thereby preventing forgery and misuse. Moreover, the law stipulated that the breaking of a seal without proper authorization was considered a grave offense, punishable by fines or even banishment, depending on the severity of the infraction. The imperial decrees also stipulated that certain categories of documents, such as tax records and military orders, required multiple seals from different officials to ensure authenticity. This multi-seal requirement not only served as a check against fraud but also fostered a culture of accountability among bureaucrats, as they were compelled to collaborate and validate each other's work. Additionally, the introduction of the seal of the state during the reign of Emperor Alexios I Komnenos further codified the protocols surrounding imperial seals. This state seal was to be used exclusively for documents of significant importance, such as treaties and declarations of war, and its use was strictly regulated to prevent unauthorized applications. The meticulous regulations surrounding the seals reinforced the notion of centralized power, as the emperor's seal became a symbol of authority and legitimacy within the Byzantine political landscape. Part 10, Supply Chain and Logistics. The intricate supply chain and logistics involved in the production and distribution of ink pots and sealing materials within the Byzantine Empire were a marvel of bureaucratic efficiency, albeit often fraught with challenges. The procurement of raw materials was a complex endeavor, as the ingredients required for ink production varied widely depending on the region and the desired quality of the ink. Black walnut husks, for instance, were a favored source for producing high-quality black ink, while other pigments such as indigo and ochre were employed for colored inks. The collection and processing of these materials necessitated a well-coordinated effort among local artisans, merchants, and bureaucratic officials to ensure that the ink supply remained consistent. Records indicate that significant quantities of ink were often stockpiled in state warehouses to mitigate shortages, particularly during periods of heightened administrative activity or crises. The logistics of transporting ink pots, seals, and other sealing materials were also carefully orchestrated. The Byzantine road network, which was one of the most advanced of its time, facilitated the movement of goods across vast distances. However, the transportation of these delicate items was not without its risks. Inclement weather, banditry, and the occasional bureaucratic snafu could delay shipments, leading to temporary shortages in the supply of sealing materials. Moreover, the establishment of state-run ink production facilities in select urban centers allowed for greater control over the quality and distribution of ink. These facilities employed skilled artisans who were trained in the art of ink-making and seal crafting, ensuring that the standards set forth by the imperial regulations were met consistently. The interplay between local craftsmanship and state oversight created a dynamic system that underscored the importance of ink pot sealing protocols in the Byzantine administrative apparatus. Part 11 Record-keeping methods. The record-keeping methods employed alongside the Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols were integral to the overall functioning of the state. The meticulous documentation of transactions, decisions, and communications was essential to maintaining order and accountability in an empire characterized by its complex administrative structure. At the heart of this record-keeping system was the use of various types of parchment and papyrus, which were carefully prepared to ensure durability and legibility. Scribes, often trained in specialized schools, were responsible for the transcription of documents, and they employed a range of writing instruments, including reed pens and brushes, to create clear and precise records. The process of record-keeping was further enhanced by the use of elaborate ledger systems, which categorized documents based on their nature and importance. These ledgers, often bound in leather and adorned with seals, served as repositories of state knowledge. They were meticulously maintained and regularly audited to ensure accuracy and completeness. In addition to written records, the Byzantine Empire also employed a system of oral record-keeping, particularly in rural areas where literacy rates were lower. Local officials and community leaders would often serve as oral historians, recounting important events and decisions to ensure that vital information was preserved and disseminated throughout their communities. Ultimately, the combination of written and oral record-keeping methods contributed to a robust bureaucratic framework that underpinned the Byzantine Empire's governance. The ink pot sealing protocols, as a component of this system, played a crucial role in safeguarding the integrity of these records, ensuring that the empire could function effectively across its vast and diverse territories. Conclusion. In conclusion, the Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols represent an intricate web of practices that evolved over centuries, reflecting the empire's regional diversity, bureaucratic innovations, and logistical challenges. Through the examination of these protocols, we gain insight into the broader administrative mechanisms that govern this remarkable civilization. The enduring legacy of these sealing practices serves as a testament to the Byzantine Empire's commitment to order, authenticity, and the preservation of its rich history. The tedious history of Byzantine imperial inked pot sealing protocols, Part 8. Regional variations and comparisons. As we delve deeper into the intricate labyrinth of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols, it is imperative to acknowledge the regional variations that emerged throughout the expansive territory of the Byzantine Empire. The empire, at its zenith, spanned from the Balkans to the eastern Mediterranean, encompassing a plethora of cultures, languages, and administrative practices. These regional differences manifested prominently in the design and utilization of ink pots and the sealing protocols associated with them, reflecting local customs, artistic styles, and bureaucratic necessities. In Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire, ink pots were typically made from glass, a material prized for its aesthetic qualities and availability. The ink pots were often elaborately decorated, featuring intricate designs that showcased the wealth and sophistication of the imperial administration. The seals affixed to documents originating from Constantinople were usually crafted from fine wax, sometimes mixed with colored pigments to enhance their visual appeal. This practice not only secured the integrity of the document but also served as a status symbol, with the color and quality of the wax often indicating the rank of the official who had affixed the seal. Conversely, in the provinces such as Egypt and Syria, where local customs held sway, the ink pots were more utilitarian in design. Made from locally sourced materials like clay or even metal, these ink pots exhibited a marked simplicity compared to their Constantinopolitan counterparts. The sealing protocols in these regions often relied on more rudimentary methods, with officials utilizing simple impressions made from carved wooden seals or rudimentary metal stamps, reflecting the practical needs of local governance over the ostentatious displays common in the imperial capital. Furthermore, the use of seals varied significantly based on the region's economic conditions. In wealthier provinces, such as Asia Minor, where trade flourished, seals were often more elaborate, integrating intricate designs that mirrored the local artistic styles. In contrast, poorer regions resorted to simpler practices, as resources for crafting high-quality seals were scarce. This economic disparity led to a fascinating tapestry of sealing practices across the Byzantine Empire, with each region contributing to the overall bureaucratic function while simultaneously reflecting local identity and governance. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols cannot be isolated from the broader historical context of the empire. From the establishment of the Byzantine state in the 4th century CE to its eventual decline in the 15th century, sealing practices underwent significant transformations influenced by political, social, and technological changes. In the early Byzantine period, seals were primarily used as a means of authentication and security for official documents. The seals were often simple in design, primarily featuring the name and title of the issuing official. However, as the empire expanded and bureaucratic complexity increased, seals evolved to become more sophisticated. By the 6th century, the introduction of iconographic elements, such as Christian symbols and portraits of emperors, began to appear on seals, reflecting the growing intertwining of state and religion. This evolution marked a shift from mere identification to the assertion of authority and divine legitimacy, reinforcing the emperor's role as both a political and spiritual leader. The 9th and 10th centuries heralded a golden age for Byzantine seals, characterized by a remarkable proliferation of artistic styles and iconography. The Byzantine Renaissance saw an explosion of creativity, with seals adorned with elaborate motifs and inscriptions that conveyed not only authority but also cultural identity. The introduction of new materials, such as precious metals and gemstones, enhanced the visual impact of seals. The imperial ink pot sealing protocols during this period became increasingly standardized, with specific regulations governing the size, shape, and design of seals. The bureaucratic apparatus had matured, and the ink pot sealing process became a highly ritualized affair, reflecting the empire's sophistication and stability. However, the decline of the Byzantine Empire in the late medieval period brought about noticeable changes in sealing practices. The loss of territories, coupled with economic difficulties, led to a reduction in the quality and complexity of seals. Regional variations became more pronounced as local officials adapted to dwindling resources. The bureaucratic regulations that once governed sealing practices became less rigid, reflecting the fragmentation of power and the disintegration of centralized authority. The ink pot sealing protocols, once a symbol of imperial grandeur, were reduced to practical instruments of governance, albeit still crucial for maintaining the semblance of authority. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The Byzantine Empire was renowned for its elaborate bureaucratic structure, which was supported by an intricate web of regulations and laws governing every aspect of administration, including ink pot sealing protocols. These regulations, enshrined in various legal compendiums, outlined the procedures and requirements for the proper use of ink pots and seals, ensuring the integrity of official documents and maintaining the order of the imperial bureaucracy. One of the earliest codifications of these regulations can be traced back to the Codex Theodosianus in the 5th century, which provided guidelines for the use of seals by officials at different levels of government. The Codex stipulated the types of seals that could be used, the circumstances under which they should be affixed, and the penalties for improper use. For instance, unauthorized individuals were strictly prohibited from using seals, and any documents bearing a fraudulent seal were deemed invalid. Such regulations underscored the importance of seals as instruments of authority and the need for rigorous oversight to prevent forgery and corruption. As the bureaucratic apparatus evolved, so too did the legal framework surrounding sealing protocols. The Basilica, a comprehensive legal code compiled in the 10th century, provided more detailed regulations, including specifications regarding the materials used for seals, the design elements that should be included, and the procedures for maintaining and storing ink pots. This level of detail not only facilitated uniformity across the empire but also reinforced the significance of seals in the broader context of imperial governance. Moreover, the Byzantine administration implemented specific laws regulating the use of ink pot sealing protocols in relation to military and diplomatic communications. For instance, military dispatches often required the use of a unique seal to signify their authenticity. Diplomatic correspondence, on the other hand, was subject to stringent protocols, including the use of colored wax to differentiate between various types of communications. These regulations highlighted the multifaceted nature of sealing practices and their critical role in the functioning of the empire's complex administrative and diplomatic machinery. Supply chain and logistics. The supply chain and logistics surrounding the production and distribution of ink pots and sealing materials were crucial components of the Byzantine bureaucratic system. The empire's vast expanse necessitated an efficient system to ensure that ink pots, wax, and sealing tools were readily available to officials across different regions and provinces. The primary material for wax production was beeswax, which was sourced from local beekeepers throughout the empire. In regions with abundant agricultural resources, such as Thrace and Asia Minor, the availability of beeswax was relatively high. However, in more remote areas, the supply could be inconsistent, leading to variations in the quality and quantity of sealing materials. The Byzantine administration often relied on local guilds and trade networks to facilitate the distribution of these essential supplies, highlighting the importance of regional economies in the broader bureaucratic framework. In addition to beeswax, the pigments used to color the wax varied significantly based on local availability. The use of natural dyes derived from plants and minerals was common, though in some regions, trade routes facilitated the importation of more vibrant colors. The logistics surrounding these trade routes were critical, as the timely delivery of sealing materials could directly impact the efficiency of local governance. Any disruption in the supply chain, whether due to natural disasters, military conflicts, or economic downturns, could lead to significant delays in the sealing and dissemination of official documents, thereby hampering administrative functions. The storage and preservation of ink pots and sealing materials were also of paramount importance. Ink pots, particularly those made of glass, required careful handling to prevent breakage, while wax needed to be stored in cool, dry conditions to maintain its pliability. The Byzantine administration established protocols for the inventory and maintenance of these supplies, ensuring that officials were equipped with the necessary tools to carry out their duties effectively. These logistical considerations, although seemingly mundane, were critical to the smooth operation of the bureaucratic machine. Record-keeping methods. The Byzantine Empire was characterized by its meticulous record-keeping practices, which played a vital role in the administration of ink pot sealing protocols. The importance of accurate records cannot be overstated, as they serve not only as a means of tracking the use of seals but also as a way to ensure accountability and transparency within the bureaucratic system. Record-keeping methods varied across different levels of administration, often reflecting the complexity of the tasks being undertaken. At the imperial level, the central administration employed scribes who were responsible for maintaining comprehensive records of all official documents issued, including those sealed with ink pots. These scribes utilized a variety of materials, including parchment and papyrus, to create detailed inventories that documented the date of issuance, the nature of the document, the official responsible, and the corresponding seal affixed. The meticulous nature of these records ensured that any disputes regarding the authenticity of a document could be resolved efficiently, as officials could refer back to the original entries in the records. In provincial administrations, record-keeping practices were often less formalized but still adhered to a certain level of rigor. Local officials maintained their own logs of documents issued and received, often employing simpler methods such as tally sticks or wax tablets for initial notations before transcribing them into more permanent records. The use of wax tablets, in particular, was a common practice that allowed for easy erasure and reuse, reflecting the practical needs of local governance. The advent of the Byzantine bureaucracy also saw the introduction of standardized forms and templates for official documents, which facilitated the record-keeping process. These forms often included designated spaces for the affixing of seals, ensuring that the corresponding records were aligned with the material evidence of authority. The meticulous nature of record-keeping in relation to ink-pot sealing protocols exemplified the Byzantine Empire's commitment to maintaining an organized and efficient administrative system. In conclusion, the intricate tapestry of Byzantine imperial ink-pot sealing protocols reveals an astonishingly complex interplay of regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, logistical considerations, and record-keeping practices. As we have seen, these seemingly mundane aspects of governance were integral to the functioning of the empire, reflecting the sophistication and depth of Byzantine administration. While these protocols may appear tedious in nature, their significance in shaping the bureaucratic landscape of the Byzantine Empire cannot be understated. The tedious history of Byzantine imperial ink-pot sealing protocols, Part 9. In the sprawling tapestry of Byzantine administrative practices, the ink-pot sealing protocols stand as a testament to the intricate bureaucratic machinery that defined the empire. As we delve deeper into this meticulous subject, we shall explore the regional variations and comparisons that existed within these protocols, trace their evolution across different historical epochs, scrutinize the associated bureaucratic regulations and laws, examine the supply chain and logistics that supported these practices, and finally, consider the record-keeping methods that were employed to ensure the integrity and continuity of documentation within the empire. Regional variations and comparisons. The Byzantine Empire was not a monolithic entity, rather, it comprised diverse regions, each with its own local customs and practices. The sealing protocols for ink pots varied significantly across these regions, influenced by local traditions, administrative needs, and the availability of materials. For instance, in the bustling commercial hubs of Constantinople, where trade flourished, the ink pot seals often featured intricate designs that reflected the wealth and sophistication of the local merchant class. In contrast, in the more rural provinces of Anatolia, the seals were simpler, utilitarian in design, and primarily focused on functionality rather than aesthetic appeal. In regions such as Sicily or the Aegean Islands, where Greek and Italian influences mingled, one can observe a distinctive fusion in the sealing practices. Seals from these areas might display a blend of Hellenistic motifs alongside Latin inscriptions, reflecting the complex cultural interactions of the era. Furthermore, the use of local materials in the production of ink pot seals also contributed to these regional variations. For example, Seals made from local clay or stone would vary in texture and appearance, thus influencing the overall sealing technique. Moreover, one must consider the role of local governors and administrators in shaping these practices. In provinces with a high degree of autonomy, such as the themes established by Emperor Heraclius, local administrators often adopted and adapted the imperial protocols to suit their specific governance needs. This led to deviations from the central standards established in Constantinople, highlighting a fascinating tension between central authority and regional autonomy. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of ink pot sealing protocols reflects broader changes within the Byzantine Empire itself. During the early Byzantine period, particularly under the reign of Justinian I, 527 to 565 AD, sealing practices were formalized to ensure the authenticity of state documents. The use of wax seals became standardized, and these seals often bore the effigy of the emperor or the insignia of the state. This period saw the codification of sealing practices that would last for centuries. As the empire transitioned into the Middle Byzantine period, marked by the iconoclastic controversies and subsequent social upheaval, sealing protocols began to evolve in response to the changing political landscape. The necessity of maintaining secure communication channels amidst political instability led to more sophisticated sealing techniques. The introduction of multi-layered seals became common, where a primary seal would be encased in a secondary layer of wax or clay, providing an additional layer of security against tampering. By the late Byzantine period, particularly during the Paleologan dynasty, 1261 to 1453, the protocols had further diversified. The aesthetic aspects of sealing became increasingly prominent, with seals often featuring elaborate designs that reflected the personal tastes of officials and the artistic trends of the time. This era also saw the emergence of specialized artisans who devoted their skills to crafting seals, leading to a flourishing of iconography and personalization in sealing practices. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The Byzantine bureaucracy was characterized by a complex web of regulations governing every aspect of administrative life, including the protocols for ink pot sealing. Numerous edicts and laws were enacted to standardize the use of seals, often delineating the responsibilities of officials in their application. The Ecloga, an important legal code from the 8th century, contained provisions that addressed the use of seals, stipulating the proper materials and methods for their application to ensure the authenticity of documents. Additionally, the Book of Ceremonies, compiled in the 10th century, provides insight into the ceremonial aspects of sealing practices. It outlined the hierarchical importance of seals, dictating that only certain high-ranking officials were permitted to use specific types of seals. This hierarchical structure reinforced not only the importance of the seal as a mark of authenticity but also as a symbol of status within the Byzantine administrative framework. Furthermore, the Byzantine state also recognized the need for penalties for improper sealing practices. Regulations included fines or even more severe consequences for officials who failed to adhere to the established protocols, thereby underscoring the importance of maintaining the integrity of official documents. The meticulous nature of these regulations reflects the Byzantine commitment to administrative precision and the prevention of fraud. Supply chain and logistics. The logistics surrounding the production and distribution of ink pot seals were vital to their successful implementation within the Byzantine bureaucratic system. The materials used in creating seals, such as wax, clay, or metal, had to be sourced from various regions, each known for specific resources. The production of high-quality wax, for instance, relied heavily on beekeeping, which was prevalent in regions such as Thessalonica and the Peloponnese. The demand for quality materials created a supply chain that involved not only local artisans but also merchants who specialized in the trade of raw materials. The transportation of these materials was no small feat. Roads, often fraught with danger from bandits or natural obstacles, were the primary means of moving goods across the empire. The Byzantine state invested in maintaining and securing these road networks, recognizing their importance in facilitating trade and ensuring the availability of essential materials for administrative practices. Furthermore, the establishment of regional depots for storing materials and finished seals became common, allowing for greater efficiency in the bureaucratic process. In addition to the physical materials, the logistics of sealing also encompassed the bureaucratic apparatus necessary for the distribution of seals to officials across the empire. Central offices in Constantinople coordinated the dissemination of seals, ensuring that each province received appropriate designs and materials according to their administrative needs. This coordination required meticulous planning and communication, often facilitated through detailed correspondence and the use of couriers. Record-keeping methods. The importance of record-keeping within the Byzantine Empire cannot be overstated, especially concerning the protocols surrounding ink pot seals. The system of documentation was designed to ensure the accuracy and authenticity of the myriad of administrative transactions that occurred daily. Every sealed document was recorded in ledgers maintained by various bureaucratic offices, detailing the author, date, and purpose of the correspondence. The records themselves were often kept in specialized archive rooms, where documents were meticulously categorized and stored. The practice of maintaining duplicate records was common, with one copy retained in the originating office and another dispatched to the relevant authority or recipient. This redundancy served as a safeguard against loss or corruption of documents, particularly in an era where the potential for administrative errors was significant. The use of scripts, particularly the uncial and later minuscule scripts, was also crucial in the legibility and preservation of these records. Scribes were trained extensively in these writing styles, ensuring that the documents were not only functional but aesthetically pleasing. The incorporation of illustrations or decorative elements on significant documents further emphasized their importance and contributed to the overall visual culture of Byzantine administration. In conclusion, the ink pot sealing protocols of the Byzantine Empire reveal a microcosm of the larger bureaucratic practices that defined this remarkable civilization. Through regional variations, the evolution of practices over time, comprehensive regulations, intricate supply chains, and thorough record-keeping methods, one gains insight into the diligent efforts of Byzantine officials to maintain order and authenticity in their complex administrative landscape. While the minutiae of these practices may seem tedious, they collectively underscore the sophistication and endurance of Byzantine governance, which has left an indelible mark on the annals of history. The Tedious History of Byzantine Imperial Ink Pot Sealing Protocols, Part 10. In the ongoing exploration of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols, it becomes imperative to delve into the regional variations and comparisons that characterize the diverse landscapes of the Byzantine Empire. Spanning from the Adriatic Sea to the Black Sea, the empire was a tapestry of cultures, languages, and administrative practices that influenced the evolution of ink pot sealing. Regional variations and comparisons. The Byzantine Empire, with its extensive geographic reach, exhibited notable regional differences in the implementation of ink pot sealing protocols. In the heart of Constantinople, the imperial capital, the use of ink pots was heavily standardized, reflecting the centralized authority of the Byzantine bureaucracy. The ink pots used in this region were often made of finely crafted ceramic or glass, adorned with motifs reflecting imperial iconography. Such sealings were not merely functional, they served as a visual representation of the emperor's power and legitimacy. Conversely, in the provinces such as Thrace or Asia Minor, local variations began to emerge in the design and materials of ink pots. Here, artisans often utilized locally sourced materials, leading to the development of unique regional styles. For instance, in the coastal towns of Asia Minor, ink pots were frequently crafted from clay, sometimes featuring intricate engravings that depicted local deities or symbols. These regional variations were not merely aesthetic but also reflected the social and economic conditions of the area, as local artisans adapted to the resources available to them. Moreover, the sealing protocol itself varied significantly from one region to another. In provinces with less direct oversight from the central government, such as the Balkans, the sealing of documents could be less rigorous. Local officials often relied on simpler seals made from wax, which, while functional, lacked the elaborate designs of their imperial counterparts. The use of seals in these regions became more of a matter of personal authentication rather than a strict adherence to the imperial standard, illustrating the decentralized nature of Byzantine governance in some areas. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of ink pot sealing protocols over different time periods within the Byzantine Empire is a reflection of broader socio-political changes. During the early Byzantine era, from the establishment of the empire in the 4th century to the height of the Justinian reign in the 6th century, ink pots were primarily utilitarian objects designed for administrative purposes. They were employed in the documentation of laws, imperial edicts, and correspondence between officials. The seals used during this time were often simple, with the emphasis placed on functionality rather than ornate design. However, as the empire transitioned into the Middle Byzantine period, 7th to 12th centuries, the use of ink pots and seals began to take on a more ceremonial role. The rise of the bureaucracy and the increasing complexity of governance necessitated a more formalized approach to documentation. Ink pots became more ornate, often crafted with precious materials such as gold and silver, and adorned with complex designs that emphasized the authority of the emperor. This period saw the introduction of the chrysabule, a golden seal used to authenticate important documents, further elevating the status of ink pots in imperial protocol. The late Byzantine period, 13th to 15th centuries, witnessed yet another shift in the use of ink pots and sealing protocols. With the empire facing external threats and internal strife, the sealing of documents became a matter of survival and legitimacy. As the Ottoman Empire began to encroach upon Byzantine territory, the importance of secure and recognizable seals became paramount. This period saw a return to simpler, yet highly recognizable, sealing methods that emphasized the need for immediate identification over elaborate ornamentation. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The bureaucratic regulations surrounding ink pot sealing protocols were extensive, reflecting the Byzantine Empire's commitment to order and hierarchy. The legal framework governing the use of seals was codified in various imperial decrees and legal texts, such as the Basilica, which outlined the appropriate use of seals in administrative practices. One of the most significant regulations was the requirement that all official documents be sealed with the emperor's seal, ensuring that any correspondence emanating from the imperial office could be authenticated. This regulation extended to provincial governors, who were required to use their own seals in conjunction with the imperial seal to validate local decrees. The practice of requiring dual seals helped to maintain a connection between the central authority and the provinces, thus reinforcing the hierarchical structure of Byzantine governance. Furthermore, detailed protocols were established regarding the handling and storage of ink pots and seals. Officials were instructed on the proper methods for maintaining the integrity of their seals, which included specific guidelines on the types of wax to be used and the appropriate temperatures for sealing. Such minutiae may seem trivial, yet they underscore the empire's overarching emphasis on control and uniformity within the bureaucratic apparatus. Supply chain and logistics. The supply chain and logistics associated with the production and distribution of ink pots and sealing materials were as intricate as they were essential to the functioning of the Byzantine administrative system. The manufacture of ink pots involved the careful coordination of artisans, suppliers, and bureaucratic oversight. Materials for ink pots were often sourced from various regions of the empire, with clay coming from local quarries, and glass being imported from regions renowned for their glassmaking, such as Egypt. The transportation of these materials was a complex undertaking, reliant on a network of roads and waterways that had been developed over centuries. The Byzantine state maintained a series of supply routes to ensure that ink pots and sealing wax were readily available to officials throughout the empire. Moreover, the production of ink itself was a highly specialized trade, with specific recipes depending on the intended use. Darker inks were often reserved for important documents, while lighter inks might be used for less formal correspondence. The procurement of the necessary dyes and pigments involved a supply chain that connected various regions, with certain colors being more prestigious and thus more expensive. The logistics of distribution were further complicated by the empire's vastness. Imperial couriers, known as agiloi, played a crucial role in the transportation of sealed documents, often traveling on horseback or via caravan to ensure that correspondence reached its destination promptly. This system, while efficient for its time, was highly dependent on the reliability of the roads and the safety of the routes, which could be compromised during periods of conflict or natural disasters. Record-keeping methods. In the Byzantine administrative system, record-keeping played a pivotal role, especially concerning the use of ink pots and sealing protocols. The meticulous documentation of sealed correspondence was essential for maintaining a historical record and ensuring accountability within the bureaucracy. The primary method of record-keeping involved the use of codices and scrolls, where each sealed document was logged into an official register. This register would record essential details, such as the date of the document, the parties involved, and a brief description of its contents. Such record-keeping practices not only ensured the preservation of important information but also facilitated the tracking of correspondences, thus enabling officials to maintain an accurate account of their activities. Additionally, the Byzantine Empire employed a system of archiving that involved the careful organization of documents by subject matter and date. Archives were typically maintained in the Megabibliothek, or Great Library, which housed an extensive collection of sealed documents and their corresponding records. The archiving process was overseen by a designated official known as the logothetes, whose responsibility was to ensure that all documents were properly catalogued and stored. The importance of record-keeping cannot be overstated, as it served as the backbone of the Byzantine bureaucratic system. The ability to trace correspondence and verify the authenticity of documents through their seals was fundamental to the empire's governance. The meticulous nature of these record-keeping practices reflects the Byzantine commitment to order, continuity, and the preservation of imperial authority. In conclusion, the exploration of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols reveals a complex interplay of regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, logistical challenges, and record-keeping methods. Each aspect, while seemingly mundane, contributes to the rich tapestry of Byzantine governance and administration. The study of these protocols not only illuminates the intricacies of bureaucratic life in the Byzantine Empire but also serves as a reminder of the enduring importance of documentation and authentication in the exercise of power. The tedious history of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols. In the vast annals of Byzantine history, a seemingly mundane yet critically essential practice emerges from the shadows, the sealing of ink pots. This practice, while ostensibly trivial, bears witness to the intricate bureaucratic machinery of the Byzantine Empire, reflecting the socio-political tapestry of its time. This exposition delves deeply into the minor historical figures instrumental in establishing and maintaining these protocols, specific case studies highlighting their application, and an exhaustive comparative analysis with similar practices in other regions. #minor historical figures and their roles. To fully appreciate the Byzantine ink pot sealing protocols, it is imperative to acknowledge the lesser-known figures who contributed to their development. Among these figures was Theodora of Constantinople, a 10th-century bureaucrat whose meticulous documentation of sealing protocols laid the groundwork for future practices. Theodora, although not an emperor or a general, played a pivotal role in the administrative structures of the empire. Her treatises on the use of seals included a detailed account of their importance in maintaining the integrity of official documents. One can only imagine her scribe's frustration as she meticulously dictated. To ensure that the ink pot remains untainted by the unworthy hands of lesser scribes, the seal must bear the image of the reigning emperor, flanked by the sacred symbols of the cross and the two-headed eagle. Asterisk. Her contributions, while overshadowed by more prominent historical figures, highlighted the importance of bureaucratic integrity in the Byzantine Empire. Another figure of significance was Michael Psellus, a 11th-century scholar and bureaucrat. His writings on the administrative practices of the Byzantine Empire included references to the ink sealing protocols as a critical component of governmental operations. Psellus noted, "The ink pot, adorned with the seal of our Lord, stands as a testament to the authority vested in the emperor. For without such seals, the parchment is but a blank canvas, subject to the whims of the unscrupulous." Specific case studies with dates. To elucidate the application of ink pot sealing protocols, we can examine several case studies that exemplify the significance of these practices. One notable instance occurred in 1054 AD, during the papal legation to Constantinople, when Cardinal Humbert presented a document to Patriarch Michael I Cerularius. The document was sealed with a specially crafted ink pot which bore the papal insignia, a critical gesture of diplomatic importance. The significance of this event cannot be overstated. The ink pot used during this exchange was not merely a vessel for ink but a symbol of authority and legitimacy. The meticulous sealing process was chronicled by Anna Komnena, a Byzantine princess and historian, who commented on the event in her work, The Alexiad. As the ink pot was sealed with the papal insignia, a hush fell upon the assembly, each soul present aware that the fates of empires rested upon the integrity of this ink. Another important case study occurred in 1176 AD when Emperor Manuel I Komnenos dispatched a letter to the Sultan of Iconium. The ink pot utilized for this correspondence was sealed with a complex design incorporating the imperial crest and a unique pattern that symbolized peace. This specific sealing protocol was elaborately documented in the imperial archives. The accompanying text stated, "To ensure that the intentions of our emperor remain undistorted, let this ink pot be sealed, that it may bear witness to the sincerity of our words." Comparative analysis with other regions. The Byzantine Empire's ink pot sealing protocols can be contrasted with similar practices in other regions during the same period. For instance, in the Islamic Caliphate, sealing protocols were also of paramount importance. However, unlike the Byzantine emphasis on the emperor's image, Islamic seals often featured intricate calligraphy and geometric designs, reflecting the cultural significance of art in Islamic governance. In the Holy Roman Empire, the use of seals and ink pots mirrored Byzantine practices but evolved in distinct ways due to differing political structures. The Holy Roman emperors often used wax seals on their ink pots, stamped with their effigies. This practice emphasized the emperor's divine right to rule, though it lacked the ceremonial weight of the Byzantine approach, where the ink pot itself was often an art piece. Moreover, in China, the sealing of documents was deeply entrenched in Confucian ideals, where both the ink pot and the seal served as symbols of moral integrity. Chinese officials meticulously inscribed their seals on official documents, ensuring that they were imbued with the weight of their authority. The contrast in the designs, Byzantine seals being more emblematic and religiously charged, and Chinese seals being more abstract and philosophical, illustrates the diverse manifestations of sealing practices across cultures. #Archaeological findings and interpretations. Archaeological excavations in regions once under Byzantine control have unearthed a wealth of artifacts related to inked pot sealing protocols. In a dig at Macedonia, researchers uncovered a trove of inked pots adorned with seals dating back to the 12th century. The materials used and the craftsmanship displayed in these artifacts provide critical insights into the production and significance of these items. One particularly notable find was an inked pot bearing a seal that is believed to have belonged to Empress Eudocia, the wife of Emperor Theodosius II. This inked pot, crafted from alabaster and intricately carved with religious motifs, serves as a testament to the connection between imperial authority and the sanctity of written words. Archaeologists speculated that its presence in the imperial treasury highlights the importance of maintaining the integrity of documents during times of political upheaval. In another significant excavation at the Great Palace of Constantinople, remnants of inked pots and sealing paraphernalia were discovered alongside documents bearing the marks of various seals. The findings suggest that the sealing of inked pots was not merely a bureaucratic formality but a critical practice intertwined with the political machinations of the empire. A researcher noted, "These artifacts, once mere tools of bureaucracy, are now our windows into the past, revealing the intricate dance of power and legitimacy in the Byzantine Empire." Primary source quotations, invented but plausible. The tedious nature of inked pot sealing protocols has been recorded in various primary sources throughout Byzantine history. For instance, a fictional letter attributed to Bishop Eustathius of Thessalonica in the year 1111 AD notes, "In the days of our holy emperor, it is decreed that every inked pot must bear the seal of the emperor, lest the ink be rendered impotent and the words lost to the ether." Additionally, an invented excerpt from a manuscript of a 14th-century scribe, Leontius, provides further insight. Upon sealing the inked pot, one must invoke the names of the saints, for their blessings ensure that the words inscribed are preserved through the ages, untainted by falsehood. Conclusion. In conclusion, the study of Byzantine imperial inked pot sealing protocols, while seemingly tedious, opens a window into the complexities of governance, authority, and cultural expression in the Byzantine Empire. The contributions of lesser-known historical figures, specific case studies, comparative regional analyses, and archaeological findings all serve to illuminate the significance of this practice. As we delve deeper into the minutiae of this subject, we uncover a rich tapestry of political intrigue and bureaucratic precision, illustrating that even the simplest of practices can echo through history, revealing the profound connections between ink, authority, and the very fabric of society. Thus, the next time one gazes upon the remnants of an ink pot, it is essential to recognize not merely the object itself but its role as a silent witness to the grand narrative of the Byzantine Empire, a narrative filled with the whispers of seals, the strokes of pens, and the weight of history itself. The Byzantine Empire, which thrived from the 4th to the 15th century AD, was characterized by a complex bureaucratic system that relied heavily on written communication, particularly in the form of imperial decrees, edicts, and correspondence. One of the most fascinating yet often overlooked aspects of this bureaucratic machinery is the protocol surrounding ink pot sealing, a practice that underscored the importance of authenticity, security, and formality in the empire's administrative functions. To fully appreciate the intricacies of Byzantine sealing protocols, it is essential to delve into the minor historical figures who played significant roles in the development and enforcement of these practices. Among these figures, one can highlight a lesser-known but pivotal character, Eustathius of Thessalonica, a cleric and civil servant during the reign of Emperor Manuel I Komnenos, 1143–1180. Eustathius was not just a theologian but also an adept administrator who contributed to the formulation of administrative policies, including those related to the production and sealing of official documents. His writings, particularly his letters, reveal a keen awareness of the need for proper sealing techniques to prevent forgery and ensure the integrity of imperial communications. In one of his letters dated to 1164, Eustathius wrote, "The seal, a humble yet potent emblem, must embody the essence of our sovereign's will, for without it, the parchment is but a blank, a mere whisper of authority." This sentiment echoes the broader Byzantine belief that seals were not mere embellishments but vital instruments of governance that conveyed legitimacy and power. Another notable figure in the realm of Byzantine sealing protocols was Michael Psellos, a prominent scholar and statesman of the 11th century. Psellos, known for his philosophical works and historical writings, also served in various imperial capacities, where he witnessed firsthand the importance of sealing practices. He often lamented the decline of seal quality in his era, attributing it to the laxity of the bureaucratic class. In his treatise on governance, he stated, "A seal unkempt is a proclamation of chaos. Let it not be said that the Byzantine Empire falters in its gravitas through mere wax." Turning to specific case studies, we can examine the sealing protocols employed during the issuance of the famous Edict of Thessalonica, in 380 AD by Emperor Theodosius I. This edict, which established Christianity as the state religion of the Roman Empire, was meticulously sealed using a unique blend of red and black wax, symbolizing the duality of divine authority and earthly governance. The seal featured the image of the emperor alongside the Christian cross, a clear indication of the new religious direction of the empire. Contemporary accounts, albeit sparse, suggest that the seal was witnessed by a council of bishops who ensured that the edict was both authentic and in accordance with ecclesiastical laws. A hypothetical account from a clerical observer might read, "As the wax met the parchment, an air of solemnity enveloped the hall. The seal, hot and molten, became the herald of divine decree." Comparative analysis with other regions reveals that Byzantine sealing practices were somewhat unique. While contemporary empires, such as the Carolingian Empire in Western Europe, utilized seals for similar purposes, the Byzantines took sealing to an art form. In the Carolingian realm, seals were often rudimentary and lacked the intricate designs characteristic of Byzantine seals. Additionally, while the Byzantine Empire maintained a centralized approach to seal usage, with strict regulations and a dedicated bureaucracy overseeing the process, many other regions allowed for a more decentralized and informal sealing practice. For instance, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms employed seals that were often personal rather than official, reflecting individual authority rather than that of the state. A hypothetical Anglo-Saxon chronicler might have noted, "The Lord's seal, though made of simple wax, bore the weight of his name and could command the loyalty of men, yet, it lacked the majesty of the Byzantine seal, which shimmered with the light of the empire." Archaeological findings related to Byzantine seals have provided rich insights into this aspect of imperial administration. Numerous seal impressions have been recovered from excavations in Constantinople, showcasing a variety of designs that ranged from simple monograms to elaborate iconographic representations. For instance, a seal found in the ruins of the Great Palace, dated to the 12th century, features an intricate depiction of the Virgin Mary, flanked by the words, "The Emperor's Divine Will." This seal not only served a functional purpose but also acted as a medium for expressing the theological foundations of imperial authority. Interpretations of these findings suggest that seals were not merely practical tools but also served as a reflection of the socio-political climate of the time. The prevalence of religious imagery in seals from the 11th and 12th centuries, coinciding with the rise of the Komnenian dynasty, indicates a deliberate effort to intertwine divine right with imperial governance. A plausible interpretation by a modern historian might read, "The seals of this period encapsulate the Byzantine ethos, where earthly governance and celestial mandate were inextricably linked, creating a tapestry of authority woven through wax and impression." Primary source quotations, while invented for the sake of this discourse, can serve to illustrate the sentiments surrounding ink pot sealing protocols. For example, a fictional imperial edict might declare, "Let it be known to all subjects that henceforth, the seal of the emperor shall be the guardian of truth and the sentinel against deception. Any parchment lacking this insignia shall be deemed void, an echo of the void." Such proclamations highlight the seriousness with which the Byzantine state regarded the integrity of its documents. In conclusion, the Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols represent a rich tapestry of administrative practice that is often overlooked in broader historical narratives. The roles of minor historical figures like Eustathius and Michael Sellos, specific case studies such as the Edict of Thessalonica, comparative analyses with other regions, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations all contribute to an understanding of how these protocols were not merely bureaucratic minutiae but essential components of the Byzantine Empire's governance and identity. The intricacies of these practices, though tedious, reflect a civilization deeply invested in the maintenance of order, authority, and continuity through the medium of wax and seal. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our tranquil exploration into the tedious history of Byzantine imperial ink pot sealing protocols. We have journeyed through the intricate layers of history, from the early days of the Byzantine Empire, where the art of sealing documents was as vital as the ink itself, to the meticulous methods that ensured the integrity of royal communications. Each step we took revealed the profound significance of these protocols, illustrating how something as seemingly simple as an ink pot could echo the grandeur and complexity of an entire empire. As we wandered through this rich tapestry of history, we uncovered the delicate craftsmanship of seals, the artistry involved in their creation, and the deeply ingrained traditions that shaped the way emperors communicated their will. We learned how these seals were not merely functional but served as symbols of authority and identity, safeguarding the empire's secrets and legitimacy. It's fascinating to think that each wax impression carried the weight of decisions made, alliances forged, and the very essence of imperial power. Thank you for joining me on this gentle journey through time. May the stories of ink and wax bring you a sense of calm and reflection as you prepare to drift into a peaceful slumber. The world may be filled with the noise of modern life, but here, in this moment, we have embraced a quietude that allows us to appreciate the beauty of history. As you settle down into the comfort of your bed, let the soothing echoes of our exploration wrap around you like a soft blanket. Know that if you wish to revisit any part of this serene narrative, you can replay this recording whenever you need. Each listen can serve as a gentle reminder of the connections we share with our past, and the calm it can offer in our present. So, dear listeners, as you close your eyes and let the weight of the day drift away, I wish you a night filled with tranquility and dreams as rich as the history we've explored together. May your sleep be deep and restorative, and may you awaken refreshed and ready to embrace the new day. Good night, dear friends. May peace cradle you until the morning light.